My name's Chris Young of White Orchid Wedding Films, the wedding video department of Raptor Films Limited, a small videography company based in West Lothian, Scotland. We've been filming weddings since 2011, have completed about 130 so far, and have lots of nice 5-star Facebook reviews to show for it. Today I'd like to talk to you about how to film weddings, or at least how I film weddings. Most of the weddings I shoot are between brides and grooms, so I'll be using those terms throughout this video. But I'm perfectly happy to, and have filmed several same-sex weddings or civil partnerships. Shooting weddings is great. It's one of those jobs that doesn't actually feel like work, a bit like serving drinks in a bar on a Saturday night. Because everyone is having a great time, it's all about love, friendship, commitment and happiness. Weddings, that is, not necessarily bar work. Although everyone is different and every couple is different, and therefore so is every wedding, there are some similarities, patterns and useful policies to have in place when filming them. First things first, equipment. At least 2 HD cameras that can film in 1080 or above. 2 tripods, one as tall as possible. A Steadicam of some sort with quick release. A computer, laptop with editing software. I use Final Cut Pro X on a MacBook Pro. At least 1 LED onboard lighting kit with the dimmer if possible. A 4-way plug extension with USB slots is ideal. Bonus, 4K GoPro camera with suction mount. SD cards and micro SD cards, 64GB, 32GB. Snacks to eat on the day, very important, fruit and nut mix, fruit juice, sandwiches, Coca-Cola, Iron Brew, things like that. Transport, something to get around in. I use a Toyota Auris Hybrid. A couple of these little things to always wipe your lens with. Smart attire. 3 microphones that can record internally as MP3 players. Yeah, that's about it for equipment. I never use just one camera. First and foremost, you could film everything brilliantly, the wedding goes amazing, and then you drop your camera in a pond. Or the card could be scrambled, or your camera could be stolen. Anything could happen. What will you do then? The whole wedding is gone. Secondly, filming any event with 2 cameras gives you much better editorial control. If someone makes a mistake, or coughs or sneezes, and you want to remove it, then to avoid a jump cut, all you have to do is cut the part out, switch from one camera to the other, and hey presto, it's gone. Thirdly, having a second angle is advantageous because if the person you're filming happens to turn in that direction, then obviously you want to use the clip from that camera. I put my second camera on a tall tripod, taller than most people's heads, so they can't inadvertently block the picture. And I set it up so it has a nice stationary wide shot of the stage. Then I leave it there, only coming back to check it's still recording occasionally. This is my backup number 2 camera, in case number 1 is shaky or I have to change position. I put it in a place where people won't trip over it and it won't get knocked by guests or interfered with by curious children. Be under no illusions, as a videographer at weddings you need camera stabilization. Smooth cam processing is pretty good. I use it a lot on Final Cut Pro X, but it does have its limitations, especially if the shake is really bad, there's some flash photography, which there usually is at weddings, or if someone walks in front of you. That's why I use this Merlin Steadicam. These came out a few years ago, but now you can pick them up on eBay probably for a couple of £100 or less if you're lucky. But depending on your camera, they can be quite heavy because of the counterweights. So it's worth doing a bit of weight training in advance, just to make it easier to hold steadily for long periods. In fact, a bit of weight training and general fitness also comes in useful when you have to carry heavy equipment around. And also last the long day. Weddings can be quite hard work. After your camera, probably your most important piece of kit is your microphones. I picked up these 3 microphones over the years while filmmaking in Japan. It may be hard to believe, but this little thing is my number 1 mic. It has a lapel mic on a pin that attaches snugly to the groom's waistcoat. It's a self-contained MP3 recorder, so there are no signals being emitted that might distort other mics. I press record, put it on hold, and then slot it into the groom's inside pocket or watch pocket, and then sync it all up later. This mic will then pick up the bride and the groom's vows much clearer than a mic on a camera yards away. Trust me, you don't want to use your audio from your cameras except to sync stuff up for background audio or in case of emergencies. Advertising. Get yourself a Facebook page for free and a website for a little bit of money. Research market prices. Charge low to nothing for your first wedding to get experience and in exchange for footage to use for promotional purposes. Join lots of wedding groups on Facebook to see what the chat is and get your name out there. Spend a little bit on Facebook and Gumtree advertising. For £10 or £20 a month, you can really target your audience in those specific locations in which you work. Tell your friends and family, maybe they'll help you spread the word. I'm now going to go through a checklist, a time frame of what to do leading up to the wedding. A month before the wedding, have a preliminary meeting with your clients. Once you've found your first couple and taken a 20% deposit, have a sit-down or virtual meeting with them and go through their plans for the day so you're not caught out. What kind of questions to ask? More on that as I go. The week before the wedding, dry clean your formal wear. This may seem obvious, but if you're anything like me, your wardrobe will be full of half-used suits. The day before the wedding, charge up all your batteries. Empty all your SD cards and camera cards. Ensure there is space on your laptop to import a couple of 100 gigabytes of footage. Ensure all mics have enough space on them for 2 or 3 hours of audio. Put all your equipment in one place in your house, not in your car in case it gets stolen that night. Fill your car with petrol. Get the numbers of the AA or RAC and of some other kind videographers who might be able to jump in at the last minute should you get sick or have an accident. Don't drink alcohol the night before a wedding. Save it for the night after the wedding. On the day itself, wake up early. Have a big breakfast because it's going to be a long day and there won't be much time to eat or relax. Have a shower, a shave, make yourself look presentable. Imagine you're going to a job interview or something like that because first impressions last, don't they? You're only going to see the family and friends, the guests of the bride and groom on one day, so you want to look your best, don't you? And if they like what they see, they might hire you to film their wedding. Who knows? That's happened to me a couple of times. Leave in plenty of time to ensure you arrive at least 30 minutes before you need to start filming. The further away the wedding, the more chance of an accident or a roadblock on the way. So you need to factor this in, don't you? Always give yourself time to deal with any issues, a puncture, a detour, Highland cattle on the road, etc. For me, driving is work because it takes concentration, so I need a break before I even start filming, because I'm a big softie like that. That's why I like to arrive in plenty of time, have a coffee and a reconnoitre, adjust my tie, etc. Bridal prep. Some weddings involve filming the bride and or groom getting ready. So, arrange a time to turn up that works for both of you. It might feel a bit awkward standing around in a cramped space pointing a camera at people in various states of undress, but it's just part of the job, and some great, sometimes emotional footage can be captured to help add to the story of the day. With a bit of luck, the couple will be getting ready near each other, maybe in the same hotel. So when things get a bit slow at one location, you can say, "Okay, I'll just pop over and see how your other half is doing," and vice versa. Then it's just a case of going back and forth, capturing good footage and culminating in the money shots of the bride coming down the stairs in her full dress, or the groom and his groomsmen all dressed up and ready to go. Bonus points for shots of the cars, the flowers, rings, shoes, etc. The little details that the couple have put into the making of the big day. The venue. If you can, try sticking a GoPro with sucker mount on the front of your car before pulling into the venue. This usually yields up some great footage of a long drive or the grounds leading up to a castle or stately home. Guests arriving. I try to get to the venue more than an hour before the ceremony start time. Half an hour to relax. Start an hour before the ceremony start time, because I have to set up cameras on tripods, liaise with a photographer, celebrant or equivalent, wedding planner, etc., as well as catch my breath before filming the guests arriving. Timing is everything here because you don't want your mic batteries to run out halfway through the ceremony, do you? Or your camera cards to unnecessarily fill up with footage of empty rooms. Or to miss the bride arriving in her car. Let's say the ceremony is to start at 1 p.m. I'm going to give you an example of times I'll aim for the hour preceding the ceremony. 12 noon. Start work, be there, get the camera up to the venue, get steady cam shots of the inside of the venue, and set up camera 2 on the tripod. But don't switch it on yet. Get nice shots of the groom arriving, coming out the car. Guests, photo with groomsmen, rings. 12:30, switch on camera 2 now to get the guests filing into the venue. 12:35, mic up the groom. 12:40, switch on all the microphones. 12:45, final shots of groom and best man at front. 12:55, be at the front ready for bride to arrive in car. Camera 1 on Steadicam. Precede her backwards into the venue, but don't walk backwards down the aisle. You'll stick out like a sore thumb and probably trip on the carpet. Go down the side and find an unobstructed view of her approaching down the aisle towards you, while trying to stay out of your own shot from camera 2. The ceremony. As I just said, when the bride comes in, I usually film her coming down the aisle with camera 1 at the front next to the groom. Then I move backwards and round when everyone sits down, subtly detaching the Steadicam. Depending on the size of the ceremony room, I might fix it to the Merlin quick release on a nearby tripod that I've already set up in advance. Then I can zoom in from afar without any shake or wobble and can give my arms a rest. If it's tight up the front, I might have to just remove the Steadicam and stand there doing my best, as there might be no way to go up the back without drawing too much attention to myself. Usually the celebrant, priest, minister, humanist or registrar will do most of the talking, so zoom in on them for the most part, only to pan away for reaction shots. More religious ceremonies may even have the bride and groom facing away from the guests, towards an altar. So it's good to be ready for this and set up a camera on a tripod in advance in the holy zone, aiming back the way onto their faces. Discuss all this in advance at the meeting, or even get the couple to sketch the inside of the venue if you've never been there. During the vows, I usually like to be closer to the couple and get over the shoulder shots of each if possible, while staying back a bit. This may involve a bit of running back and forth. Key points are the vows and the first kiss. These are high priority moments and must not be missed. During the signing of the register, I try to get footage of the bride and groom actually signing, but some churches don't allow this, so just take it as it comes. While the photographer is doing their thing, and after reattaching the Steadicam for exit of the happy couple, I might try to flit about getting good shots over the photographer's shoulder or of the guests. As the person in charge of the ceremony is wrapping up, I'll position myself at the end of the aisle, shoulder to shoulder with the photographer, in order to get an unobstructed view of the couple coming down the aisle towards us. Then I'll walk backwards, tracking them, carefully looking behind me as I go, for as long as possible. This is especially rewarding if they walk down a long, well-lit corridor. I also ask the bride and groom for a cheers to the camera, which always looks really nice because they're glowing and happy, and it's a privilege for the audience to be able to share that moment with them and actually have eye contact with the camera. And that's the hardest part done. Some key points to remember are to never cross the line of sight between the guests and the couple, to stay discreet and courteous, and to be helpful if needs be. Also, I try not to make any jokes during the wedding day because my off-the-wall humour can sometimes be taken the wrong way. So rather than risk that, I smile, nod and hold my tongue, choosing instead to let the photographer run the show and make the jokes. The photos! Some people might think, what's the point of filming the photos getting taken? You're going to have them anyway to remember that part, right? Yes, that's correct. Unless, of course, the photographer's photo card gets corrupted and he contacts you to see if you can send him some stills. But the truth is, a nice music video montage of the photos getting taken slots really nicely in between the ceremony and the speeches. Plus, a lot of funny, nice or aesthetic stuff can happen behind the scenes that the photographer may or may not catch. Guests hugging, people clinking glasses together, the canapes being taken round. Little details that look nice on the day but quickly fade into memory. Also, a slow motion confetti throw looks great on video as well as frozen in a photo. The speeches! Next up are the speeches. In advance, figure out where the speakers are going to be sitting. Usually there are little name tags on the table, aren't there? But when in doubt, ask the wedding planner or master of ceremonies. I have 2 mics, these ones that can be placed down on the tables in front of the speakers. And I put the lapel mic on the best man this time to give the groom, who's probably a bit stressful at that point, a break. I usually put this Zoom H2 down in front of the groom because sometimes the bride or other people around the groom say something nice or funny in reaction. And this is a multi-directional microphone. Some microphones pick up nasty buzzing from nearby smartphones, don't they? Especially this one. So I sometimes ask the people around the mics to switch their phones to airplane mode if possible. Again, as with the ceremony, I'll set up a couple of cameras around the room on tripods. Maybe attach this GoPro upside down using the sucker mount to a window or mirror to get a lovely view of the room as everyone comes in. Then, when the happy couple are being piped in, I'll precede them backwards with the Steadicam, after confirming with the wedding planner which way they'll be approaching the top table, of course. You should also ask in advance when they'll be cutting the cake, because some weddings the couple might pause and cut the cake on their way to the top table. In others, they'll cut the cake just before the first dance. This is why it's always advisable to have a sit-down meeting to go over the itinerary with the happy couple so you know what to expect. It also helps to build a rapport, so if one of your jokes does happen to slip out during the big day, they'll at least have more of a chance of understanding where you're coming from. Once the happy couple are safely seated, retreat to the tripod with the Steadicam quick release on it. Switch camera 1 from Steadicam to tripod. Train it on the first speaker. Stand back, stretch your muscles and relax. Usually the order in the UK for wedding speeches is father of the bride first, then the groom in the middle, finally the best man to cheer everyone up with his jokes. But sometimes there are multiple best men and occasionally the head bridesmaid might say something, or even, in one great case I had, sing a funny song. You need to check all this in advance at the preliminary meeting. Also, will the speeches be before the meal? Usually they are these days. Or after the meal, which was more traditional. Or a bit of both. Another important point is to make sure your camera too is zoomed out enough to catch the speakers while stood up, not just while seated. Otherwise their heads will be chopped off when they are giving their speech, and that backup footage will be unusable if you have to adjust camera 1. For this reason, I always assume that the camera I am using is the only camera in operation. Zoom in slow, zoom out slow, pan carefully. This also maximizes usable footage and makes things much easier should there be a problem with the other cameras. But mistakes happen. That's why I always periodically double check my other tripod cameras. Is the red LED still flashing on the GoPro? If not, why not? Can I fix it without sticking out like a sore thumb? Once all the speeches have been completed, I like to try and catch the hugs, shaking hands, congratulatory afterglow before retrieving the mics and switching off all the cameras. Then I'll remove the cameras and tidy up the tripods so the happy couple don't think they're being recorded while eating, which could lead to unnecessary indigestion. And that's the speeches. If you're lucky, the bride and groom might have organised some dinner for you. Another reason to have a preliminary chat so you can discuss this in advance. And I like to begin import of the footage so far and have a skim through it while I'm eating. A, because I want to check everything looks okay. B, to duplicate the footage for safety reasons. C, to free up space on the cards for the evening. And D, it saves a lot of time later. Now is also a fine time to charge up your batteries, literally and metaphorically. The evening! This is the chill out time between the speeches and first dance when everyone's relaxed and the evening guests arrive. New faces coming in, hugs and kisses, and a bit of chilled out coffee drinking time. Maybe some games at the tables and some kids messing around. Great footage. After that is the cake and first dance. The ceremony and speeches are arguably the two most important parts of the big day, the third being, in my humble opinion, the cake and the first dance. 8 times out of 10 here in Scotland, the cutting of the cake will take place on the dance floor these days, just before the first dance, so that the evening guests can witness it. Plus, everyone's already gathered round, so it makes sense from the venue's point of view. I set up 2 cameras high on tripods looking down at the dance floor in preparation for the first dance, and I might even parade around a bit on the empty dance floor and check how it looks on the camera. Rule of thumb for filming the first dance, it's better to cut the couple off at the knees than at the neck. The main concern during the first dance is also lighting. For some reason, people like nice dim mood lighting for this part of the day. Unfortunately, it means your cameras won't pick up a damn thing, so have your lights ready. One of these onboard LED lighting units with a dimmer switch is ideal. But I'm also toying with the idea of using big lights anyway. A 3-point lighting system set up will make your subjects stand out all the better. Use backlighting to separate them from the background for extra wow factor. The lights will have to be organised in advance though, because there won't be time between the cake and the first dance to adjust them. So, the guests have gathered round. The cake is to be cut. Where should you stand with camera 1? I crouch down in front of the couple, aiming up at them. This serves 3 functions. 1, you get a nice clear unobstructed view. 2, so do your guests over the top of your head. And 3, looking up at the bride and groom when they're cutting the cake gives them a kind of stately, impressive appearance, as if they're on a pedestal. It looks quite nice. Then the cake is whisked off and it's over to the band or DJ. And you'll know which when you ask at the preliminary meeting. If it's a band, why not capture their audio to use on the wedding DVD? The dancing. This is a nice part of the wedding day, which is often cut short or even overlooked entirely. Who wants to see people after they've had a few drinks, strutting their stuff from the dance floor, you may ask? Well, I do. After the stiff, formal part of the day is over, it's great to see people relax and let their hair down. Also, you can rest assured that, unless the clients really want it to, any footage that makes people look anything less than impeccable will not be included in the video. I don't sell video clips to You've Been Framed or upload them publicly to YouTube. And neither should you, because obviously that would be bad business practice. Messages from guests. Sometimes the client will express an interest in this chapter, and sometimes they'll specifically request for it not to be included. That's fair enough. It's a bit like the Marmite section of the wedding video. But the important thing is to not pressure guests into leaving a message. What I usually do is leave a camera or two running trained on the dance floor, and if things are a bit quiet, I'll wander around to find a quiet spot, possibly near the toilets, where I can politely invite guests for a short interview. I usually use this Rode microphone, connected with the XLR cable to the camera and a big furry cat skin on, not because of the wind, but to cut down the noise of music in the background, and the guests usually find it an amusing prop to use. The last dance. Only rarely are we invited to stay the whole night until the last dance, but this is always a pleasure to witness, and it really feels like we've been invited along as a guest to take part in the whole day. Yes, you're tired, but if you've been charging batteries and eating fruit and nut throughout the day and porting your footage on the hoof, then you should be able to go the distance and be able to provide this final special keepsake for the bride and groom. Run Rig and Rabbi Burns will probably be there to keep you company. A couple of other little extra pointers. Always have one of these camera lens cleaners in your pocket at all times, because if a tiny flake of cigarette ash, for example, happens to get on the front of your camera lens, that's going to be there for the whole day unless you do something about it. And you won't see it on the little screen. You'll only see it on the big screen when you're editing on the computer. And by then it's too late. You can't do anything about it. So every time you move from the indoors to the outdoors, or outdoors to the indoors, or from room to room, just give your lens a quick wipe. Just get into the habit of doing it all the time, because anything could alight on the lens and ruin all of that footage, and it's a nightmare to get rid of. White balance. If you're changing from room to room, set the white balance afresh, because 9 times out of 10 the light in one room will be different from the light in another. A lot of cameras have automatic white balance settings, which is fair enough. It's just something to keep an eye on. Ideally you should have a white bit of paper stuck, say in the ceremony room, have it at the front, and adjust all the white balances of all your cameras, and then you won't have to do it in editing later. It's just good practice. Use manual focus on your tripod cameras rather than automatic focus, because sometimes they just drift out of focus and back again, don't they? Another thing about focus is with autofocus on your camera one over the shoulder shots of the vows, for example, if you're filming the bride and groom and there might be a space in between, there might be a guest in the background, right, in the middle, the autofocus on the camera might focus on the guest miles away and not on the bride or groom. Okay, so you need to watch out on that. Keep your subject in the center of your screen all the time in order not to confuse the autofocus. Or use manual if you're brave enough. Why not? And that's it. That's the whole day filmed. Now all you have to do is get home safely, maybe have a can of Red Bull in your car just in case it's a late finish and you're tired, and import the rest of your footage from cameras and mics in the car on the way home if you can, if you've got enough battery on your MacBook. I usually set it running overnight as well, so everything is imported by morning. Always take your cameras inside. Don't leave them in your car overnight. Once you have the whole library in one central location, copy it over to an external hard drive somewhere so that you have 2 copies at all times. Then, and only then, you can wipe the footage off the camera cards in preparation for the next shoot. The rest is up to you. I might do another video on editing weddings, so please subscribe for notifications of new videos. I hope you found this one interesting and useful. Thanks again for watching.